My name's Loretta Hayes. I'm from Hayes Sewing Machine Company in Wilmington, Delaware. And welcome back to our creative videos. Today, we are going to do the absolute cutest quilt. Particularly if you have a teacher in your life, so maybe make a really great end of year teacher gift. So it is done with a Villa Rosa pattern. It is called Pointless, and it is pencils. Can you scan in on that?
That's cute.
And it is a super easy quilt to do. So it starts out by you sewing together two different strip sets. So the first strip set is going to be done with 2.5-inch strips, and you're going to have 3 shades of yellow. Our goal here is to have varying going from light, medium to dark, so that when the pencils are on the fabric,
I'm just going to pan down here. Just so they can see it.
Absolutely. So the dark will become the shadow part of the pencil, the light will become the highlight part of the pencil. You will need to sew 3 of these in order to make the 6 pencils. So that's our first strip set. The second strip set is for the eraser tip. So there's going to be 4 strips involved in this. You're going to have 2 lighter ones. I chose actually a white. In the pattern they say light gray. And then a dark gray for the center. That kind of creates that metal part of the pencil. And then the pink part that is going to create our eraser tip.
All right, and again, I'm just going to scan down so you can, it's that part. Okay.
So once you have your strip sets sewn together, and I just sewed them with a 1/4-inch seam, 2.5-inch stitch length. I have my 1/4-inch foot on. Just went and pressed towards the darker strips. The next thing that you need to do is you need to do some trimming. So for the eraser tips, you're going to take it, once you have your strip done, you're going to cut it into 6.5-inch sections. So we're going to come in, we're just going to make sure that I'm straight. Actually not too bad, but we'll do a little cleanup. And then we're going to set up at 6.5. So I'm going to flip my ruler around because this ruler has a 1/2-inch section. A 12.5-inch square up ruler is a really helpful thing on this particular quilt. So we'll go ahead and we'll cut 1, and I need a second one because we're going to be doing 2 pencils at a time. So we'll line up here. So you can see I've got the 6 here, and the 1/2 is being added on the right-hand side there. All right, so we have created these really adorable eraser tips. All right, so that's what we do with the eraser tip set. For the pencil, you're going to take your strip and you're going to clean up an end and you're going to trim it to 42 inches long. And this is in the pattern, so you don't have to do a lot of work with that. Now, once you have that, the only other fabrics that there are in the quilt are background fabrics. And so you're going to have some strips of fabric from your background that are going to be cut 6.5. They're going to actually go to the end of the pencil. And then we're going to have some 4-inch strips which are going to separate between the pencil. So the 4 inches are here and the 6.5 are here, going along like that. So we don't need the 4-inch one for a moment. We'll just go ahead and tuck that off to the side. We'll leave the pencil erasers out of the equation. And then we're going to take and we're going to overlap 2 of our strips. So 1 6.5-inch background and 1 pencil strip. I would just kind of do a rough line up here. You don't have to get too particular about it.
How big is this quilt?
The quilt when it's finished is 52 inches by 61 inches.
That's a nice size.
Yep,
Nice lap
it is
size.
a nice size. All right, so once you have these overlapped, what she does is she says you can either randomly cut or she gives you some measurements. So
Okay.
I did mine by the measurements so that you guys could see on the pattern. So the last measurements on here are going to be 23 and a half and 18 and a half. So that 23 and a half and 18 and a half totals up to that 42 inches.
Thank you for doing the math for me.
That's why she did the math. So we need to grab a tape measure, and we're going to measure, I'm just going to measure the 18 and a half, and then the 23 and a half will take care of itself. So we're going to come in and we're going to line up and we're going to find the 18 and a half inches. When you find the 18 and a half inch, go ahead and make a mark. I usually make 2 marks. I make a mark above and below the tape measure. Oops, I'm sorry, let me go back. Like that. Okay, and once again, doesn't have to be, you know, super accurate. It's you're just trying to get we're trying to get different size pencils. So that's what we're doing. All right, so once we have that, we're going to go ahead and take our square up ruler and we're going to line up on that mark, but I also want to make sure that I'm lined up on the strip seams. That way we're getting a nice square cut. And we'll go ahead and we will cut that. So now we have 2 pieces, one that's 18 and a half and one that's 23 and a half. And so what we're going to do is we're going to swap them. So I'm going to take the back round that's 18 and a half and I'm going to put it with the pencil.
That's the longer.
That's the longer one.
Aren't you clever?
And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to put those 2. So that's going to separate for doing our individual pencils. All right, so last thing to do to get our row done is to put in the eraser tips. So on this particular quilt, if you take a look at the pattern, you'll see that the pencils are coming from the left-hand side of the quilt. So we want to have the dark strip down and we want to attach the pencil tip on the right-hand side. That is the only thing that you need to think about because it would be so easy to flip the strip over.
Sure,
So
yeah.
dark is going to go here, so that's hooking up on the left. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab our pencil tip and we'll do that there. And we can get this one set up as well, so dark at the bottom and pencil tip attached to the right-hand side. So let's go ahead and sew our pencil together. So we're just going to line up and we're going to sew our pencil tip to our pencil. And we'll pick up our next one. Make sure you're sewing on that white or light gray and not the pink of your eraser tip. Just kind of do that double check. You have to do less seam rippering that way.
I think that would be an eraser that's in the
Yeah,
pencil that's in the irregular.
Irregular bin. Do they have such a thing anymore? All right, so we have just created our pencils. Aren't they sweet?
They are.
All right, so I'm going to do a quick press. I'm just going to press the seam to the yellow. Pam, you can actually just hang out. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to add our background piece to the end of the eraser. So remember we had one long and one short, right? So we're going to make sure that if I have the long strip, I'm putting the short background and vice versa. And so all of the pencils, there's 6 pencils total, all of them are done in pairs this way
Got it.
on there. So my suggestion would be to cut and stitch 2 pencils at a time
Okay.
so that we don't start mixing up our backgrounds.
Not that we would ever do that.
No. I've heard it can be done. All right. And once again, we're just going to do a quick press.
And you're pressing towards the eraser.
Yeah, just because it's darker. I mean, if you had a darker background, I would just go towards the dark. All right, so we now have our 2 pencils done. We are now going to start dealing with our strips in between those 4-inch strips. So what she has you do is she has you cut out the strips and then you sew them end to end, so the little ends sewing together, so you have this one really long tail.
Okay.
And then you cut it into 52-inch lengths. So you're going to need 7 52-inch lengths to do this. And so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of lay this out. So I kind of like the layout that she had on the pattern. And, you know, I'm a big fan of let's not reinvent the wheel. So these 2 pencils here are the bottom 2 pencils. So the next one up is going to be the longer pencil of the 2.
You're going to flip it over. There you go.
Yep. So we're going to go like that. Okay, so we'll stitch that one on and then we'll come back and deal with the others. Now, my recommendation is that you sew from the pencil end every time. You know, in a perfect world, we're going to match exactly at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, if not, it's not a big deal. We can trim up on that end. But we would like to, if we have any irregularities, we would like to have them all on one end so we're not shrinking the quilt down. So we're going to come in and we're going to, every time I sew, I'm going to start sewing from the pencil side, from the left side of the quilt.
And there should be nothing to line up?
There are no quilt tacks in this quilt at all.
There you go.
It's like, woohoo! Okie doke. So we're going to line up, and really, whenever you're doing a long length like this, what you really want to kind of pay attention to is that we're not heavy-handed guiding on either the top or the bottom. So I line up about 6 inches. I'll sew about 6 inches. I'll then line up the next 6 inches and simply just work my way down. What we don't want to be doing is we don't want to have like the death grip on either of the 2 because that will really kind of give you a rumpled quilt, which makes it a little more challenging to quilt it.
Yeah, I've met some people that could stretch cement.
Yeah,
And I'm talking about solid cement.
Solid cement. I was going to say wet cement, everybody can do. All right, so we're coming up to our pencil tip. Little eraser. When I was prepping for this, I mean, it went so fast. All right, we're looking pretty good. The background on this is just a hair longer, so rather than kind of fit it in,
just lop it off.
Yeah, I did a lot of cutting it at 11 o'clock when I prepped, so.
And we're not talking about 11 o'clock in the morning?
No, not 11 o'clock in the morning. All right, fabulous. So we're to the end. we're gonna hop over to the ironing board where I inadvertently put all my stuff, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna give it a press. And I pressed actually towards the background.
Got it.
Because my background was not too light, because the seams naturally wanted to go that way. And rather than fight them, it's always easier to just go. All right. So we could trim this up later. I think I'm going to trim it now, seeing as I'm perfectly even on the other stuff. So let's go ahead and trim that up. But you can see how, you know, if we trim a little bit of background off, totally not a big deal. All right, so this is the bottom. So we've got that going on the left. I have a panel here, if we're going to lay it out the way she did it. I've got a panel here that is going to be the longest.
Nice.
So it has there. I was hoping that when she was doing pairs, that the two pencils would land at either the top or the bottom, because I thought, oh, that'll be good for video. It'll be easy. No, not going to happen. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to join these.
And you're still sewing from the pencil side.
I'm still doing the pencil side. So you see for my panel that I did put together, I've got background pencil, background pencil. Nobody in video land is ever going to have this problem because you're going to make all the pencils and lay them out at all at one time. And just pick them up row by row. Get those edges lined up. And just 6 inches at a time. You could put clips and that kind of thing on it, but it's just not really necessary for this quilt. And you'll see where I joined the backgrounds, I took and I pressed the seams open in order to get the smoothest appearance when we're quilting. All right, got a last little bit here. So let's kind of line up. And look at that, perfect. Awesome. So let's get this one pressed, and once again I'm going to press towards the background. All right, so let's lay this back out again. So we now have 5 of the 6 pencils. So we're now going to go ahead and we're going to grab a hold of our last pencil. And we'll place that one on.
And this is more like a modern quilt. Doesn't have any borders, does it?
Has no borders.
Okay.
Although it wouldn't be, you know, if you felt like you wanted to grow it, it would be very easy to just add a couple borders to it.
You could also technically add a couple pencils too.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So if you wanted to make it a really large quilt. And as you're sewing, just keep checking to make sure that you're sewing from the pencil end towards your background. I did think, though, that the size of this quilt
it's going to be a nice size.
Yeah, it would be a really nice size if you were going to give it as a gift to a teacher. It's not crazy. And you could knock it out in a couple of nights. Wouldn't take very long at all. All right, and I kind of expect that it's going to hang over the edge because we did it in pairs and the other one hung over the edge. So no prizes. When I was cutting, Miss Luna was on the table, and so we were trying to avoid cutting kitty tail at the same time as cutting everything.
I'm sure she appreciated that.
Yes. But she doesn't appreciate when I kind of like, okay, you have to move.
Yeah, this is a cat that has no fear.
Nope, not at all.
So again, you're just pressing that seam towards the back end.
Towards the background.
Got it.
Not doing anything different. And I think we'll go ahead and trim it before we put that last strip on. So if you're trimming, you want to line up one of your lines of your ruler in one of the seams, and then the second edge along the cut edge that you're trying to match, and then just trim off, and we are good to go. So we have one last strip to put on to finish this quilt. So we'll grab our 4-inch strip. And I tell you, I love Villa Rosa patterns. If you can put the cutting directions and the sewing directions of a quilt on the back of a postcard, you know the quilt's going to be fairly straightforward.
Yipper.
And we have just gotten probably a dozen new Villa Rosa patterns in the store. So this is just one of them. Patricia is reorganizing our Villa Rosa display. So rather than having them all together, what she's doing is she's taking and putting all of the Villa Rosas that use fat quarters together, all of the Villa Rosas that do jelly rolls, layer cakes, 10-inch squares, so that if you have fabrics that you're trying to use, it'll be a little bit easier to organize for your patterns, which I thought was a cool idea. All right, so we'll give this a quick press. And I'm going to do just a tiny little trim. And this baby is complete. All right, so let's see if Pam can back up far enough. And we will go ahead.
That is adorable.
It is a sweet, sweet quilt. So I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time.